That was a little bit more abrupt than I wanted. Then I realized I didn't know where things were, and it got scary. And we're back now. Everybody, we're here.
We're good.
We're
Everything's
good.
fine.
Nothing bad happened. We definitely everything was going good. Nothing bad happened.
Everything's fine. No technical difficulties. Everything's cool.
No, nothing at all. There was nothing. The YouTube viewers are fine. They didn't miss anything.
I mean, some like 6 minutes of some sick beats getting dropped.
It's true.
Gone
Sick
forever.
beats. I pay good money for those beats.
It's true. And anyway, welcome everybody to episode 2.
Yes.
Dungeons and Downloads.
Dungeons and Downloads episode 2, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and on like pretty much every major podcast the day after. So Google, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, blah blah. There's like 8 of them. I'm not going to list them all, but they all exist
Everywhere.
So what are we going to talk about today? We got some stuff that we're going to talk about.
We are. So today, to start off, we're talking about pre-order stuff because this is after E3. And for the downloads part of it, we're going to go over like pre-order stuff. And will Rufus pre-order an Intellivision by the end of it? I don't know. We're going to find out. And then after that, we're going to be going over encounter building because we're both DMs. And we would like to go over why challenge rating is bad and why you should never use it.
Or like,
you probably should.
Or how to reference it properly and not take it as the written law.
I'm just taking the mic. Yeah. I'm being the super negative on the challenge rating here.
It's okay. When we get to that part, I'll say
have both sides, right?
I'll say a couple things and you'll be like, okay, like that's like one good reason. But like even then, it's not so much for building the encounter. But I'm not going to give it all away now, because I did basically a case study that we'll reveal later that shows why CR is terrible.
A simulation case study.
Yes. Okay, so that's what we got on the docket today. And if you guys know any other topics you want covered, why don't you comment them either in the Twitch chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, or whatever platform you're on, if it allows comments.
Just open up a Word doc and comment it in there.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't be able to see it, but you can write it if you want.
Yeah. Preferably somewhere we can see, though. Otherwise, you can't get upset if we don't do it. Or, I mean, you can, but it wouldn't justify.
I mean, it's really up to you. You're your own person.
It is true. Oh, boy. Oh,
boy.
I don't know how we're going to get through this, but pre-orders.
Pre-orders.
Oh, boy.
So, starting off, Rufus, have you already pre-ordered an Intellivision?
I haven't already, and that's because payday isn't until Wednesday.
Okay, so we're going to wait till Wednesday then? You're going to definitely pre-order it on Wednesday?
Oh, we'll see. They'll probably be all sold out by then, and the decision will be made for me.
I'm going to say that they've sold 20 by Wednesday, and that's it.
Oh, come on. Come on.
If they're lucky.
Okay.
Okay, so like we went over it last podcast. I have no faith in this. Zero faith in the Intellivision.
I mean,
don't know what it is. It's a new console that was announced at E3.
There's okay.
And we're using it as the basis for our pre-order discussion.
Come
It's
on,
not the
man.
only thing you can pre-order, of course.
On April 6th, they already had 10,000 pre-orders.
That's just a number.
And they only need 180,000 to break even, okay? So I guess what I'm saying is they're nowhere near close yet. But yeah, I haven't ordered mine yet. No, I have not.
Hey, you got to help them hit that number.
Oh yeah, totally. I'll buy the other 170,000 of them.
So Rufus, why would you pre-order an Intellivision?
An Intellivision or something?
Just in general. We'll get off the Intellivision for a bit. Let's go over the pros of pre-ordering.
So I feel like I have a unique, maybe not unique, but semi-unique perspective on this.
That's good.
Living somewhere where the local Walmart will only get 5 physical copies of a game. Before everything was available for digital download, if you didn't pre-order something, you weren't getting it for months.
Back in the days of pre-ordering at a GameStop or a Walmart, and going in to pick it up, kind of thing. Yeah.
And like even when kind of digital downloads became a thing, you got to realize that like when I graduated high school, so like in like
back in the day,
2009 or 2010 or some shit like that.
It had to be 10. You're only a year older than me.
Yeah, so like 2010. Even though we had high speed, it was still dial-up. I was only getting 1 megabit per second. So like downloading a game wasn't really a thing that was easily accessible. So like if you wanted to get the game, you had to pre-order it. And there are still some people in this scenario where they don't really have a choice. It's like you got to gamble on the game. It might not be good, but are you willing to not have it for many months, right? Smaller places don't get many physical copies, and if your internet sucks, downloading isn't really an option. So you have to decide, you know, if I'm going to buy it anyway, why not pre-order it?
That's true. I mean, in like smaller places, that definitely makes sense. Just because if you want it day one, that guarantees you get it day one.
And not even day one. Like sometimes we're talking months. Like you're not going to get it for months. It's not like next week they're going to restock it. It could be 2 or 3 months before you actually get it. And if you're talking about a game, like let's say you're into competitive shooters and, you know, Halo Reach just came out. I know it's old, but I'm dating it back to my example, okay? Halo Reach just comes out and you don't get that day one. You're like the amount of time you're going to lose from a competitive sense is actually, there's some value there, right? If you were going to buy it anyway, no matter what, you're going to start behind everybody.
So let's look specifically, other than Halo Reach, take another game, a very hot topic for pre-orders. Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh boy.
So, but if you're physical copy, Cyberpunk 2077, a super hyped game, I could see pre-ordering a physical copy actually would still have made sense because you wanted to play it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to wait 2 months to play it.
Yeah, exactly.
Digital copies, it really shows the downsides to pre-ordering. Because I pre-ordered Cyberpunk 2077 first chance I could. I did it. I was a fool. I'll admit it.
And I guess the only upside. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it didn't live up. It's also the digital copy. This was not a physical copy. I could very easily get a copy of the game.
And again, I'm supposed to be arguing the pro side of this, which is I also probably, for the most part nowadays, would lean on the other side. But again, let's go back to
we're both arguing both sides.
Let's go back to you only have 1 megabit per second, and it's a digital copy, and you know, you're not the only one using that 1 megabit per second. So it might take you a day or two to actually get the game downloaded, right?
Might be.
Maybe you're gonna pre-order it and preload it, right? Because like a lot of the games that you can pre-order, you can preload. So like again, if you're gonna buy it and you're not gonna read the review, so let's take it from that standpoint. If you're definitely going to buy the game no matter what, is there really a downside? If you're gonna buy the game
no matter what, no,
there's not really a downside, right? Where the downside comes in is if you're disappointed in your purchase, right? So like I pre-ordered Smash for Wii U. And the reason I pre-ordered it was because I was inviting a whole bunch of people over and I could preload it, and I went to bed at like 6 p.m. and I woke up at midnight and I started playing and I unlocked every character before 8 a.m. So I played Smash for 8 hours straight and I got all the characters. So there was a method to the madness there. I'm going to preload it and I'm going to get all the characters, and when I have everybody comes over, we're going to play the new Smash, I'm going to have all the characters and everything will be good. I did not really pre-order a game since then.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess that makes sense. You have a method to your madness. You want to buy it early. You want to make sure all the characters are unlocked. I am a terrible host and would have just bought it the day of, and then had not all the characters unlocked, and been like, pick whatever you can, whatever you have, go for it. But yeah, so that makes sense. Again, so we're going over a lot of things that make sense. When it doesn't make sense, going back to Cyberpunk 2077, really hyped game.
Yep.
That you're going to pre-order right away, but it's also been in development for a while, and you haven't seen a lot of gameplay from it, but you still pre-order it anyway. It's a bad idea.
And I think the sad part about that is how good of a track record CD Projekt Red had coming into that.
Witcher 3, fantastic game. I actually have the collector's edition of Witcher 3 because that was probably one of my favorite games of all time. Like I very rarely get collector's editions. That was the game.
I feel like most people went in there with a sense of like trust and confidence that they wouldn't have had with anybody, right?
I almost pre-ordered Brink. Anyone that knows Brink has a game.
Renenzo pre-ordered Brink, actually. Yeah. I think that was
I saw that, and that made me think Brink. Brink was such a terrible video game.
Yeah. Yep.
So the best way I can describe Brink is a video game where a bunch of brain dead monkeys just throw themselves at a point and try and capture it, and that's your AI friends. And that's it. That's all it is. It's just point capture. There's some parkour that was kind of cool, but it's just like.
But that was supposed to be the main thing of the game, right? They totally sold that parkour engine.
Anything else? It was just.
No. But that was their whole shtick, right? They're like, oh, look at the parkour in this. And everyone was like fresh off that cold open of The Office where they did parkour, and they were like, I want it.
Brink had really cool abilities to like get over cover and like parkour around walls. And what game did that well was Titanfall 2.
Yeah, I never played any of the Titanfall games. No, I haven't.
Or Titanfall 1 also had it. The parkour system in that was amazing because you could actually like, it's a competitive shooter where you don't just like run at the enemy team. You can like run along this wall up over here and do like a slide down and then kill someone. And then when you have enough, you get your mechs and you go do it was a good game. Said the community's pretty much dead. But so like Brink and CD Projekt and not CD Projekt, Cyberpunk 2077. Bad pre-orders. The reason being the game just didn't live up to the hype. There was too much hype around it, and it just didn't live up to it. And those were games where you really should, if you can wait, just buy it first day. Look at the reviews. Maybe buy it second day. Because the pre-order bonuses for a lot of these games are like, you get a skin for a gun. Yay. Yep. It's not worth the extra money if you're paying $60.
See, a lot of the times when I'm pre-ordering a game, there have already been like legit gameplay demos, and they're games I'm going to get. And the reason I'm pre-ordering them is to preload them because I don't know when I'm going to have time to play it. And I can guarantee you when I have time to play it, I'm not going to want to wait like an hour to get it. So like this is probably a bad example because I'm not going to pre-order it, but WarioWare is kind of an example of that. I know exactly what I'm getting, right?
It's WarioWare. It's the exact same game it's been since its release.
Since it came out, right? Games. So like those are the types of things I'll pre-order. Or Smash. Like before Smash came out, they had already done like a small tournament at like a treehouse or something like that, and they had like pros out there playing it already.
Smash, you know that you know exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah, like that's the kind of stuff I pre-order. I don't gamble my pre-order. Like I don't pre-order a game that I don't really know anything about or anything. Pre-order something that I know exactly what I'm getting, and I know I'm getting. I don't know if it's worth 70, I guess technically with tax is like $90 Canadian. It might not be worth that, but at least I know what I'm getting ahead of time, right?
I think the last thing I pre-ordered was Cyberpunk 2077 because that just kind of turned me off pre-orders altogether.
I don't pre-order a lot. Like for the most part, like I know I don't have time to play games. So like, so
Right,
like
right.
pre-ordering is kind of like I might I might pre-order a DLC for a game if they've already shown exactly what it's going to be. Like
Right, so you already know.
yeah, you're
But yeah, like
getting
pre-order is it's $60 for a skin of a weapon. So like collector's editions are a whole other thing.
oh yeah. And
Thinking of like
here
speaking of pre-orders, but like regular pre-orders is almost nothing for putting down the entire cost of the game up front of a game that could be terrible.
like I'm
You
going
could
to
just wait for reviews.
but like here's the other thing too. Like let's jump ahead. Let's actually jump up to collector's edition.
Sure.
So we're gonna go back in time a little bit, back to Halo Reach. So when Halo Reach came out, the day after, 2 days after, less than a week for sure. When Halo Reach came out, I bought the collector's edition used for the same price as the regular game with all the collector's edition stuff in it. Someone traded in the full collector's edition of Halo Reach like 2 days after they bought it, and I got it for the
Why?
regular price.
Why
I,
would
I,
you?
I don't know. But the point is, sometimes you can buy the collector's edition shit without the game later.
It's
Like,
true.
and sometimes it ends up being cheaper, right? It depends what it is. Like, some pre orders, it kind of depends. Like, those collector's edition stuff, like, some people think it's worth it, but sometimes you end up with a crappy nylon bag. And
Like
some,
Fallout 76,
or,
where it was like, here's this really cool bag in the picture. Oh, wait a minute, it's nylon. They did go back. I think they went back and they delivered decent bags to people. They probably lost a ton of money on
the
that.
thing is, though, it doesn't matter.
I
Like,
know. At that point, it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
it doesn't matter that they fixed it. They screwed over everybody who
So you
pre-ordered that, and they lost all the trust,
because
right?
they're like canvas bag. Oh, wait a minute, it's just a nylon bag.
Yeah, nylon canvas
JK.
bag. Here you go. You got jebaited.
Now, The Witcher 3 pre-order for collector's edition was fantastic. It had a really good wooden statue. It had a nice
Yep.
art book. It had the game, which is the most important part.
But like, here's the thing. Now that they've done Cyberpunk, 2077, who's ever gonna do a collector's edition for CD Projekt Red again?
Oh, I mean, there's going to be people that do. You will see people do collector's editions.
But
People will still buy. Like, I don't even know what their next game is supposed to be.
the
I
numbers
think
have,
they're still trying to work on Cyberpunk 2077.
yeah. But again, that's over now. Like, even if they fix it perfectly, that's over now. They've got that wrap. Like it's done now. People
To be
are
fair, Fallout 76 was a bad game at launch, and they fixed it pretty well, and it actually got better reviews. Like they were able to fix it and
yeah,
succeed in raising it up from the
but
ground.
like how many
So it's not like
people
it's not
talked
like
about it, right?
Cyberpunk's really. I mean, a lot of people talked about Fallout 76. People hated that
No,
game
I mean
on launch.
after they fixed it. Like how many people actually talked about it?
Me,
Yeah, so there's one.
um,
But like most people
some big
walked
streamers
away, right?
did stream it, and actually they got a decent player base after that. Like there are ways to bring a game back. It's not like your game immediately dies the second that it hits shelves and is bad.
No, but I guarantee they probably only got half the potential client base even after it
True.
picked back up again, right?
If
Like
they had just waited a year and actually like released the
yeah.
game, maybe they would have had more success.
Like Nintendo's a great example of that. What, like 2 years ago they scrapped Metroid Prime? They just came on
Yeah.
they came on a direct one day and they said we're starting over. We're not happy with it. We want to give you a good game. And a lot of
No
people
Man's Sky. Thank you. Sorry, you
No
keep
Man's
going, but
but like
I need to say that so that it gets in my head
they
because I might forget it.
they said we're scrapping this. We're done with it. Like we're not done with it, but we're done with this iteration of it and we're not releasing it and we're going to start over. And a lot of people were upset. But I think a lot of people in the end are going to respect Nintendo for that decision rather than releasing a piece of shit game that nobody wants to play. Hopefully when the game comes out, we're going to get something good out of it. Or at the very least, it'll at least be what the directors envisioned or what the game was supposed to be.
It's true, and like we will hopefully get a good Metroid Prime, and it won't like be terrible because of the amount of teams it's passed through. Because
Yeah.
there's a time where you have that much time developing a game where it just kind of goes downhill at some point. Like
Oh, yeah.
there is a time frame, but hopefully the scrapping of the project actually makes it better, and they release a good Metroid Prime 4. We got Metroid Dread coming out. I'm super excited for
Yeah.
that. But back to No Man's Sky. That is a game that was just bad on release. It was depressingly bad and just not there was like nothing to it was just like a repetitive, almost nothing to do game. And over the last like 3 years, I think it released, maybe even longer, they have just been working on that game nonstop, and they don't have the player base they could if they had released it, let's say, last year, but
Yeah.
they have been doing an okay job building up a player base.
What's that
Pre-ordering No
game?
Man's Sky would have been a bad idea.
What's that game that still hasn't come out? The space game that's never gonna come out because it's a
Star Citizen, the
maybe.
Kickstarter game.
Oh yeah. The Kickstarter game that never came out and
Yeah.
is never going to, but they keep selling things for it and they keep hyping it. That's not
Speaking of pre-orders, Kickstarter, yeah.
it's never coming out. That game is never coming out. You see, they've learned. They don't have to deliver because every time they put out new DLC ahead of the game, people still buy it.
Oh,
Like-
people have bought their like extremely expensive ships on Star Citizen because they hope that one day Star Citizen will
Yeah.
come out. They don't have to ever complete that game. They have to
No.
be. They have to have so much money.
Oh, they've made
Somewhere.
bank. They have made bank already. That game is never coming out, ever.
So, I mean, Kickstarters.
But like,
Speak about them.
yeah, let's jump back to Kickstarter. This isn't even video game related, but this is like the same idea. So like, whether it's a video game or another product on Kickstarter, I had ordered a set of what was called ice cream dice. And it was a pre-order for a set of dice that looked like ice cream. So there was one for like Neapolitan and there was one for like a creamsicle ice cream, a whole bunch of different ones. And the guy wanted, I think it was like, I'm going to make up numbers because I don't remember. It was $20. And that was supposed to include shipping and everything. So I was like, cool, $20. I'll pre-order it. And got delayed. And then all of a sudden there was a survey that came out and he wanted $5 more from everybody. And he lived in like a few time zones over. And every time he sent me an email, it was like 2 a.m. And it was like, oh, we need you to fill out this survey. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I check my email and I see this. I'm like, I'm not doing this right now. I got to go do something else.
Right.
So eventually he sends this email talking about how pissed off he is at everyone that hasn't filled out the survey yet.
What?
So, and he said that I'm going to refund your money in 7 days if you don't do this, and you're not going to get your pre-order. So I said, okay, screw you. I don't want it anymore.
Right.
Never
At
got
that
the
point,
money.
You're like, no.
Never got
Yeah.
the money back.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to. Doesn't Kickstarter have a disclaimer about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But he said he was going to. He said he was
I
going
mean,
to.
He could say whatever he wanted to. He
Yeah.
just wanted $5 more.
But at the end of the day, the dice that came out were actually kind of crappy. There was one that didn't even match the original design spec. He actually redid it after people paid for it and sent them out. And if you didn't like it, you could buy the other set again. So you could spend another $20 to get the set you actually pre-ordered.
Nice.
But it's that idea of like, I'm trusting you with something and it never goes through. Yeah. Someone in chat got one.
Kickstarter's rough when it comes to that because they do have something as far as I forget where it is when you're purchasing anything from a Kickstarter. It's like, well, they don't know the product's gonna actually be released, so it's non-refundable, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you are putting your money in someone's hands. Now, if someone, so like I backed the Kickstarter for Throw Burrito, which is a really silly game that's made from City Plus Exploding Kittens. I knew that they were going to come out with that game. They've already done Kickstarter stuff. So like I backed that knowing it's going to come out.
Well, it's kind of like, kickstarting Cyanide and Happiness, right?
Right. You know it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to come out eventually, right?
Yeah.
The only kind of exception I think to this is I kind of feel like you can almost get behind the Steam alpha stuff, the green light or whatever it is, their early access stuff. And the reason I say that is if you see a game in early access on Steam, you have the option to decide if what's currently available is worth the money that they're currently charging. And I think that's exactly how I have to look at it. Don't look at the promises they're making. Don't look at what the game could become. The game is $10 today. Did they deliver $10 worth of content? And is that worth it to me? And if it is, great. You just got in on an early access game that's kind of like, quote unquote, the Kickstarter style, but at least you got your money's worth. And if they never, ever add anything more to that game, you at least were able to make the evaluation that what I received was $10. And if they never release anything else for it, yeah, I'll be disappointed, but I still got $10 worth of material.
Right. So like a good example of something good to get early access. Valheim,
Yep.
fantastic game, early access for $20. You already had $20 of game. There was more than $20 of game in there to start with. There was
Now,
so much stuff.
oh, I wonder if I can find it here.
And it was a really good game right off the bat, and they're still adding more and more things to it. A $20 game for early access that should have been like a fifth. That could have probably been like maybe a $40 game, let's say.
There was not
And
gonna
they're
I'm
just keep going.
not gonna name too many names, but there was a game that somebody gave me a free key for to play,
I didn't do it.
and it eventually made its way to Steam in early access. They want $22.79 for this early access game. Let me read you a little bit of the review that this game got. So what they actually released to Steam was way worse than the free copy that they gave me.
Nice.
They want $23 for this.
That's a very specific amount of money.
It is. And it says, okay, is this game a joke? I mean, it has to be. It just has to be. There's no way someone could charge me $20, probably American, for a game like this that's completely empty, broken, and pointless. And there's nothing. Barely even any gameplay, to be honest, and they're still charging $20. Let me make it simple. Tutorial, no. Plot, no. Usable UI, no. Stable gameplay, no. Inventory, no. Is it broken? Yes. Is it finished? No. So, but you can look at this.
Yeah.
And you can now assess that. Like, it sucks that somebody had to buy it to get there, but at least with Steam, you're probably going to get the refund.
Right.
Right? So, like, if you buy this and it's completely broken and it doesn't work, that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but it's fine. And you're going to get your money back, right? But it's not the same way with other things. So I think that if you really want to get into this, not really crowdfunding, I guess, but like, I think that's the best way to kind of do that is just do it through Steam. You're kind of semi-protected. And like I said, you can evaluate whether you're getting $10 worth of content or not.
True. And you can look at the review, like there already are reviews up for it and all that stuff. It's probably easier than Kickstarter. Well, it's better. It's really better than Kickstarter because you just buy the game if you want to, and you can return it. Kickstarter, you really can't return it. You're just kind of done.
Yeah, you're just kind of SOL if the game never comes out, or if the game's not good, or if the game's not as advertised. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that kind of contribute to you having a bad experience in that type of a pre-order scenario.
Yeah.
It's hard to even call that a pre-order. At that point, it's just blind faith. Like, really?
Yeah. I mean, you can get the occasional Kickstarter bonus for being a Kickstarter backer, but like, I don't know.
It's not usually.
And there's certain things that won't
great,
be on Steam from Kickstarter. So like,
yeah,
if it's a trusted company, sure, okay. It's not like Kickstarter is always a bad idea. Essentially, to just summarize pre-orders, do your research beforehand. If the pre-order bonus for a $60 game and you can get it at any time is like a weapon skin, don't pre-order it. Wait for day one. If you're gonna buy it anyway, okay, go ahead, and it's your loss if the game's terrible. You were gonna buy it anyway, whatever. But like, do your research. Don't just blindly pre-order things from companies, because then you end up like me with Cyberpunk 2077. And it's not fun.
And I guess the way I look at it is, if you're gonna buy it day one, doesn't matter if you spend your money today when you have it in your bank account, or if you keep it in your bank account till day one and buy it. You're gonna be in the same boat. If you're buying it day one, like Breath of the Wild, that was the only game that came out with Switch. It turned out I didn't like it. But like, even had I waited for reviews, it wouldn't have helped, because everyone said it was the best freaking game ever created on this earth. And it was like, just, oh, it's the absolute best game ever. 10 out of 10 should win game of the year. So even had I waited for the reviews, I still wouldn't have been happy with it. Like,
well, right. So like, in that case, you are bad. So you didn't like the game. So you couldn't really be helped there.
It's true. But like, I was going to buy that day one. Like,
right.
I wasn't going to go in there, buy a Switch, have zero I wasn't going to buy 1-2 Switch. Like, right?
Yeah,
like,
that was a terrible thing.
At the end of the day, like, I'm happy I experienced that game. I don't feel like I got $90 worth of gameplay. Like I don't,
Breath of the Wild 2?
but I was gonna buy it day one. So like, if it wouldn't have mattered if I pre-ordered that, I was gonna get it. It was the up and coming Zelda game. I was gonna try it. It was the only launch title for the Switch. It was getting bought. So I didn't pre-order because I didn't have the option to. But would I have pre-ordered that? Probably. I probably would have also pre-ordered my Switch. But the way that actually went was, I forget. I don't know what day the
Why didn't you
Switch
pre-order
dropped.
your Switch? What happened?
Well, where I live, there's only a Walmart,
Right.
and I'd have to drive like 2 hours to get to an EB Games, which is basically a GameStop.
Well,
So
yeah, that's what GameStop used to be.
so what happened was, I went into work at 7 a.m. that morning, and I actually worked until like 5 a.m. the next day.
Oh, God.
And
God.
I was like gonna go home, and I was just like, I called my buddy. I was like, "Hey, do you want to go wait outside Walmart for like a few hours and get a Switch?"
Right.
And he was like, "Yeah, totally." So we stood outside in minus 33 degrees Celsius for 4 or 5 hours and got a Switch. And for all you Americans, if I can get a Celsius to Fahrenheit converter, minus 30, that's minus 27 Fahrenheit is what that equates to. Minus 27 Fahrenheit. We stood outside, and when the doors opened, we went in and we got our Switch and our Breath of the Wild, and then I went home and went right to bed and didn't play it for like till I woke up. But
You slept for 2 days straight.
yeah, I'm still asleep actually. Some say this is all a dream.
This is all a dream. This is your dream, Rufus. I don't know why you dreamed of this.
You guys,
It's all your fault.
You guys think you're actually living, but you're actually just part of a Rufus dream. I can't think of a sadder future, being trapped in a
It's the
Rufus
worst.
dream.
Truly the darkest timeline.
But I mean, I don't think I have anything else to add for pre-orders. I think we've kind of summed it up that they're, unless you're gonna buy it like for 100% sure,
Do your research. There we go.
like
Stop just blindly buying things.
yeah, if you're gonna buy it blindly anyway, okay, pre-order it. If there's a shortage, pre-order it. Outside of that, buy it 5 hours after it releases online and see what other people said about it in those 5 hours.
Too is a lot of a lot of review sites will have pre-order copies, so they'll have like press copies, so they'll have a review for it a day or two before.
Oh yeah.
So you will even know before the game releases if it's going to be bad or not.
Exactly. But I don't.
But yeah, that's.
I don't think I have anything else to add there. Maybe it's because I'm excited for the next topic.
I mean, yeah, because this is the dragons.
Okay.
The dungeons part. Dungeons part of the podcast.
Let's jump over to our next. If you could summarize our entire conversation that we're about to have in like a sentence or a sentence and a half, what would you say?
Challenge rating is bad.
Challenge rating is bad is a pretty good one. Challenge rating is bad.
So, for anyone who either missed the beginning of the podcast or doesn't know, Rufus and I are both DMs, which is where our dungeon masters are what DM was saying for. We are that's where our dungeons background come from.
Yep.
And yeah, we're gonna start off our D&D stuff, which we didn't do last week because of E3, because there's so much to talk about that. With a little talk about building an encounter, so that maybe a couple of you players out there, or just some players out there who have never DM'd, or some DMs that have your own opinions and whatever, can see what it's like to build an encounter. Specifically for the players that never have, because it's a lot that goes into it, and a lot that can go wrong or right.
So I think the first thing we should talk about is if you go into, I don't know where it is it's probably in the DMG, but it talks about there's 4, if you're going to follow this kind of challenge rating crap, there's 4 levels of encounters. There's an easy encounter, and what that means is that the easy encounter isn't going to be too hard for the players. They're not really going to use any of their resources, probably no spell slots, and they're not going to take a lot of hit points, and they're going to win for sure. And depending on what level you are, we'll talk about how the CR is calculated later, but the next one is medium. And medium kind of means that like there might be one or two scary moments. So like, maybe someone's going to roll really high, but they should emerge with nobody going down in a medium encounter. Nobody should go down in a medium encounter, but there should be a couple of scary moments.
Someone might drop a little bit low on health.
Yep.
Maybe someone might go unconscious. Probably not, though.
Hard would be like your wizard goes unconscious. Or maybe your rogue. Like
even an easy sometimes because it's a wizard.
But
you can sneeze at a wizard and it just goes unconscious.
Theoretically, by the definition of a hard encounter, one person could die. But more than likely, two people will probably go unconscious. And then deadly is it's gonna be very experienced players who are gonna win that fight, and it's not, and like most people are probably going to have either gone down at least once and gotten back up, or there's probably only going to be one person standing. And that's kind of Wizards of the Coast's definition of the 4 different types of encounters.
Yeah.
So the problem with CR is the way they calculate this. So I guess, let me bring up kind of their thresholds before we talk too much about it. I'll bring up their thresholds for what these are on the screen here for us. So this is from D&D Beyond. So this is the official Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Look down here at these tables. So what this tells me is if I have 4 first level characters, this is how they calculate it. If the amount of experience points each character would get is 25, an easy encounter. 50 would be medium, 75 would be hard, and 100 would be deadly. So if we just take that and we go to this website called Kobold Fight Club, all this does is it just calculates.
First rule of Fight Clubs, you don't speak about Fight Club.
The first rule of Kobold Fight Club is yip yip. So if we take, so in this here, this is just purely CR. So 4 level 1 characters. You can see I got that booted up here. If we let's just pick a kobold. No, I can't spell. Okay, so kobolds are a 1/8 CR. So look at this. 3 kobolds is an easy encounter. 6 is hard. 7 is deadly. So you can see it's kind of just going through these XP things here. It says that my daily budget for XP should be 1,200. And that the total XP of this encounter is 175. But it gets adjusted to 437. So this is actually a little bit smarter. But theoretically, based on just CR alone, this is actually still technically an easy encounter.
Yeah.
Just based on flat CR of 175, you have to hit 200 to hit medium.
So there is a multiplier in the book. I don't know if it shows it on the table, but there is a multiplier per each monster.
Okay.
As you go by.
And
like you would multiply the XP by like 1.5 or 1.75 and whatnot.
I think that's what we get down to down here. But
because it's not modified total XP for multiple monsters yet.
And that's this here.
Multiples.
The adjusted table.
Yeah.
So it's telling me that my dude, 5 kobolds should be a medium encounter. I guarantee 5 kobolds against 4 level 1s is probably hard or maybe even deadly because they're outnumbered.
And level 1, especially level 1.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of tools at your disposal.
Not at all. So how it scales with multiple monsters. I guess we just talked about that.
It multiplies. So the way the table is built is it goes, as you add monsters, you add a multiplier to the XP so that it adjusts it. It's kind of Challenge Rating's way of compensating for having 10 monsters, because if you just added 10 25 XP monsters, it's 250. But it's going to be a lot harder than 250 XP worth of monsters.
Yeah. So the theoretical pros of using this type of encounter building. So I guess when we say this type of encounter building is literally just going in there and saying this much experience, this many people, this is the daily total of experience. The pros of using that is it gets you off the ground quick. You don't really have to think about it. You're a brand new DM. You'll feel it out as you go, maybe, or maybe you don't have a lot of experience and you accidentally kill your party and better luck next time. But
Yeah.
you can get an encounter off the ground in about 5 minutes by just opening up Kobold Fight Club and looking for things that match your CR number. I don't know if you're doing a one shot and you have no idea how to build an encounter. It doesn't really matter
Right.
if everybody dies at the end. Well, try CR and get your feet wet with it and join the rest of us and figure out why it's not that great of a
Right, right.
solution.
It's a good way to start and to kind of say, okay, it's my first time. Let's use what the book says and go from there.
And I guess this is kind of a good time to bring in, like I was saying earlier, there is a place for CR. And here's where I think CR lives. I have an encounter I want to build, and I have 4 level 5 characters. Okay, give me a list of monsters between 2 and 4 CR. I don't know what I want to do something new, and then I'll just start flicking through and I'll be like, oh, cool, what's an Orog? And then I'll go Google what that is. And, that way I'm not looking at CR 20 monsters. Like, CR sucks, but also I know that you guys can't beat a CR 20. So at least I can rein it in and say something between, even 2 and 7. And then I can look at a Grick Alpha and decide if that's too strong or not strong enough. But it helps me filter the massive amount of monsters in the monster manual kind of quickly. Like, I know I don't want even, 2 to 7. 2 is going to be way too easy. So maybe I'll say, 3 to 7. And then this will help me kind of come up with, okay, these things should be out of the equation because they're either way too easy or way too hard. And then I can build my encounter with the stuff in the middle. I think that's where CR really shines, is looking at an individual monster and just at a glance saying, oh no, it's a 15, that's way too high. Unless you're going to tweak it. If you're going to tweak it, there, you can do stuff to tune it down or tune things up. But,
CR is also really good if you're doing a homebrew monster. You can say, okay, this is a CR5 monster. I want to make a challenge rating 5 monster of my own. How much health does this have? How much AC does it have?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's a really good starting point.
That's
about where it ends.
It's definitely great for a starting point, and I think it's better left towards evaluating single units and how strong a single unit is comparatively to a single character than actually building an encounter with. I think it's a better indication of that. Like, it's not perfect still, but I think a CR, comparing a CR4 monster to a single level 4 NPC is a more accurate depiction than this is a CR4 encounter. The relative power levels. So, like, that everything in a CR4 is of the same relative power. So if everything, if you look at 3 monsters in a CR4 library and they're all way too powerful, probably everything in CR4 is too powerful. So I like that you can kind of index them that way and kind of look at stuff and kind of get those ideas and say, well, no, this is too powerful. Okay, well, I got to, change the type of monsters I'm looking at for this encounter. That's where I think it shines.
And where it doesn't shine,
yeah,
it's a couple of words I want to use. It's called action economy.
Yep.
Which basically says, how many actions can this thing do in a turn? What can it do? Not so much what's its health, what's its AC, what can the creature itself do? And challenge rating really doesn't take that into account, which is why a lot of things versus a party can still be pretty deadly, even if the challenge rating is like medium.
This is probably a good time to look at the case study.
Sure, we'll look at the so Rufus did a lot of simulating to go over challenge rating and why it's bad.
So kind of what I came up with was I came up with this idea for an encounter. And I thought, let's start this off with 4 characters at level 3. And let's build an encounter that there's, is theoretically beatable in terms of CR, only using CR. That's why I say theoretically, based on only CR, this should be survivable. So the idea is the players they visit a zoo in Waterdeep, and all the animals at the zoo get possessed by something, and now they have to fight the animals because they're wreaking havoc. So I've set this up as kind of
every day in my life.
Every day in Cal's life, because he lives in Waterdeep.
It's true.
And he's a sorcerer's apprentice who hasn't figured out quite how to use his magic yet. Well, yeah.
I'm offended.
Otherwise, the animals wouldn't attack you. They'd be friends with you.
No, I'm not a ranger
So
or a druid.
I'm gonna tell you an encounter, and you try to tell me where you think this is gonna go wrong. At what point do you think this goes wrong? So again, an encounter is usually kind of a full scenario. So like when I'm thinking of an encounter, I'm thinking of multiple combats, potential rests, not just one combat, one and done. Because if you think of your encounters as one combat, one and done, there is a good chance that your characters will win most of the time, and everything's going to be way too easy. Where D&D gets hard is when they have
Or
to
you'll
start.
overtune every encounter in a dungeon because you're looking
Yes,
at just the single encounter and they'll die halfway through.
that
Yep.
is that is the flip side. If you tune everything to a single encounter, that's why on the Kobold Fight Club thing you saw 1,200 experience points per day. That's why, because they get one long rest per day.
Yeah.
Then they can heal up. So you tell me where this goes wrong. I got the first encounter. So the zoo has gone crazy and they have to fight all the animals. What I have going on in this encounter is first they fight 3 apes. Then they fight 4 black bears. Then they can have a short rest if they want. Then they fight 1 basilisk. And then they fight 15 giant crabs.
So I'm going to say the 15 giant crabs. The apes doesn't
Mm-hmm.
sound that difficult because it doesn't outnumber them. 4 black bears could be hard because, 1-for-1 can get a little bit rough.
Yep.
But like the crabs, just it doesn't matter. There are just so many things they can do in a turn.
So the black bear
15.
is a half CR. The ape is a half
Cool.
CR. The basilisk is a 3. And the giant crabs are actually only an 8th CR, which is why I picked them specifically. So I ran the simulation 1,000 times. I found a D&D combat simulator, and the big thing to remember here, it's not the number that the simulator comes back with, it's the difference between the numbers, because it's going to treat every encounter the same. So while the units in these combats are dumb, they're going to be dumb across every simulation. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So first simulation we ran 4 level 3 characters, run 1,000 times. We had a level 3 warlock, monk, cleric, and fighter. Out of 1,000 fights, the party won 0 times. So I actually, with the simulator, you can actually go through and see turn by turn what happened. Somebody typically goes down during the black bear fight and like full out dies. And then
die. Okay.
Yeah, after the black bear fight, those 2 encounters back to back screws. I think it was the monk that got screwed over both times.
Monk? Interesting.
Yeah. And then after
doing a bad job.
The basilisk is able to put 1 person unconscious, but they don't die. And then the 15 giant crabs, there's so many giant crabs that half of them aren't even in combat, and none of the crabs ever die. So there's 15 crabs standing, couple of them at critical health, all the party's dead. And I stepped through probably 2 or 3 simulations, but out of 1,000, they never won. And it was usually quite similar. Somebody died during the black bear encounter. 1 or 2 people went down with the basilisk. They always died at the crabs. And remember, there's no rest between the basilisk and the crab, so they don't get any hit points back between those 2 encounters.
Right.
Unless they had something to do it. So then I said, okay. Like a cleric. And I didn't actually pay enough attention to see if he was healing them between rounds or not. I'm assuming he wasn't. But he was definitely healing them in the fight. I could see him healing them during the fight, but I don't know if he was doing it between waves. So what do you think happens? I mean, you can see the notes already, but do you think it matters if I run 4 level 4 characters, rogue, cleric, monk, wizard? What do you think happens?
I had not looked at the simulation, I would have said at level 5 they'd be able to possibly beat it because the wizard gets fireball, and that's about it.
Yep. Level 4 is 0. Right. They still win 0% of the time. And also every simulation I ran, I didn't have to, but it was just randomly generating party members. So by the time we actually got to level 5, it was actually a different layout of characters. It was cleric, monk, barbarian, rogue.
Barbarian tanks everything.
That they only won 21% of the time out of 1,000 simulations. Now what's
kind of crazy that it's such a low percentage win.
What's kind of funny though is 4 level 6 characters only won 11% of the time.
Because the party. Now that I'm going to say is because of the party. I really do think the barbarian carried that party a little bit.
I would say because in all the other ones, there's not a barbarian and they don't do as good.
The
So
barbarians can tank a lot.
level 6, 4 level 6 characters, 11% of the time. 4 level 7 characters, 9.5% of the time. And then level 8 characters won 8.9% of the time. What you should draw from that, yeah, it kind of looks weird that, the level 5 won 21% of the time. But like Cal said, the barbarian, he would have tanked a lot. But what you should pull from that is that this is not a level problem.
It's a challenge rating problem.
It's exactly, which is why when we do 6 level 3 characters, all of a sudden they win 2.5% of the time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 25 out of 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've won significantly more. And then if we jump that up to 8 level 3 characters, they win 12% of the time. So the more characters we add, the higher our percentage. But when we were just scaling the level, the action economy was basically the same. Against 15 giant crabs, it doesn't matter if you have 1 extra action per turn. They still outnumber you massively.
By a lot.
So that's where action economy comes into it. I also did one more bonus example. 4 level 3s fight goats. So goats are a 0 CR creature that only give 10 XP. If you put 4 level 3s against 39 goats, they will never win. Ever. There's not a universe where they win, because there are just too many goats.
Go grab a bunch of friends, get them together, say, okay, we're going to run 1 encounter. I'm going to make you fight goats. And that's it. That's the entire night.
And that's the thing, right? It's all about number of actions per turn, 100% of the time. And when I ran those simulations after the fact, so we had those 4 encounters in a row. If you ditch the other 3 entirely, they still lose to the 15 crabs. They don't lose 100% of the time, but they still lose. They only win like 2% of the time against just the giant crabs alone. Yep. The only way to get it down to a point where they may actually win some of the time, if you bring it down to 10 crabs, they win a quarter of the fights. And even that's a low number, but still they're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. You got to get it down to 6. I think 6 was like 60 to 70%.
6 would be decent. There's only outnumbering by 2, and the challenge rating of a giant crab is pretty low.
Yeah. But that's the case study that I put together to kind of talk about why this idea of CR is bad. All those combats were the only hard combat in that entire thing that I talked about was the giant crab fight. Everything else was medium or lower. But yet they could still get creamed, right?
Oh, yeah. Easily. But that's action economy. So we've used those words a couple times. And essentially it's just how many actions can something take in a turn? Or how many, so like 15 giant crabs all have a single attack in a turn and that's it. But that's 15 things in one encounter, 15 attacks in a single encounter that have to go off before the next initiative count. Because your encounter is whoever, it just goes down the line as far as initiative goes. That's 15 attacks. Now, it doesn't matter how crazy you are. If you're just level 3 and you're only 4 of you, taking 15 separate attacks is going to possibly kill a couple people in just 1 initiative count.
And also, think about this. You guys only get 4 attacks per turn. You can't even hit.
15.
Like, you're not going to kill the crab in 1 hit, probably. So, like, assuming all 4 of you hit, you're not going to down a single crab.
So it's another 15, or maybe not depending on initiative, but it's another bunch of attacks coming in next round.
You can assume you're going to have 30 attack rolls against the party before a single crab goes down. It's safe to assume that. Which just statistically is going to go bad.
Oh, yeah. And that's, yeah. So, like, something that makes more sense so essentially means you need to look at action economy. You need to look at a monster rather than just taking challenge rating. Going on to, like, we've already gone over why challenge rating is bad. The big thing, action economy. And we've kind of gone over what that is with the simulation, the encounters. You might be saying, well, what do I do? What do I do to make an encounter actually decent? Well, you need to look at action economy and how many actions can be taken. If you have a single creature, or if you have 4 creatures of, let's say, a challenge rating less, and they only have 1 attack per turn, that's 4 actions that they can take. And that versus the 4 actions of the party. So that's relatively balanced. It might actually end up being a little bit easy because you might want to have another action or 2 for the monsters, but that's another thing.
Trying to
But
find
yeah,
a
action.
I'm trying to find a really good definition of bounded accuracy
Bounded accuracy.
because
You can also use other big words.
I have like an idea of it in my head, but it's really hard to put into words. But basically, bounded accuracy talks about how it's not just about the rolls. So, like, bounded accuracy also takes into account proficiency and health as well. So the way bounded accuracy works is that if you have 15 crabs swinging against you, not only are they probably going to hit, but they're probably not going to go down in one hit. So, like, same with you. Your character is not going to go down in one hit, and it's probably going to be able to hit, a CR 1/8 creature, but that creature is not going to go down in one hit because of bounded accuracy. But just the sheer numbers of it mean you're going to get hit a lot until you're like,
yeah, you're going to get hit a lot more than you're hitting things.
Yeah.
But yeah, bounded accuracy.
Yeah, you can basically, this guy sums it up pretty good. Describe the D&D combat and roll system that's used in 5e such that you can only ever get a certain amount of bonuses to your roll, and this accuracy has a boundary that can't be crossed while playing the game. So, like, there's only bonuses so big, right? Like, your AC can only get so high, and the rolls can only get so big. So those creatures, their accuracy is dependent on how big their bonus is away from you. So a 1/8 CR creature against a level 3 party, like, even if they get +2 to hit, your AC is probably only 14. So, like,
yeah, your AC is pretty low at that point.
The amount of, that's kind of what bounded accuracy is, the amount of room they have to hit you relative to your health. And that's a big thing to take into consideration, as well as the action economy. If he only gets 1 action per turn, but he's got a +8 to hit, and your AC of your average party is 13, that's not good. That means he hits on a 6 or higher, right? Like,
right. So he's hitting a lot, and there's also a lot of them, let's say. And that's,
yep.
It's just they're hitting too often, and you're going to be losing way too much health to be able to survive. Because when damage exceeds your hit points, you go unconscious.
Yeah, and if it somehow doubles your hit points, you die.
And so, you're dead.
You just flat out dead.
Crab's not going to double the hit points of someone when they're down, or not going to hit them for the rest of their health and then double that.
Yeah. Now, you wanted to talk about an encounter that you made that almost had some pretty big.
We almost TPK'd.
We almost died as the player. As the player, we almost got dead.
So last week, I run D&D on stream every other Sunday. Taking a little bit of a break soon, but other stuff that's not part of this. But last week we ran a dungeon, which was mostly puzzle. They had a small encounter at the beginning, and then they had it's a Void Knights. It's a Void Knight leader encounter. And I went into it like, okay, this is gonna be pretty difficult. He's got a very high AC, because that was what the creature I was basing it off of was a challenge rating 5 creature, has very high AC. And he had some legendary actions that I added, because that I could talk about that later, but that's one of the ways that I balance single mob encounters versus a party of 4 is adding in legendary actions, because action economy can go the other way. You can have something not have enough in actions. If you have one big boss, can just get steamrolled because your party's doing 4+ actions a turn versus this 1 or 2 action thing, and it just is boring. So I had legendary actions in. He didn't have that many actions he could do, though. He could swing twice, and he had 3 legendary points, which over the course of a turn he could probably do 4 things, maybe 6 if you count his minions. But it was overtuned in my opinion, because one of the things he could do if he hit was essentially separate the party. He did a move called Severed Soul, where your soul would be severed from your body, be pushed back a certain range, and you'd be forced to fight this creature before you could go back into your body. And while on the other plane, you couldn't interact with the people from the main that were on the material plane or the base, the normal plane. And due to certain positioning and certain taunting that happened, he went right after the healer. So the healer was just out of the encounter at the very beginning.
So think about this. You've got 3 people, 2 of which are kind of glassy, and
Kind of.
one that's a bit beefier. But there's 2 factors to this. The healer's now isolated, which is bad in 2 ways, because now we don't get healed. And also healers don't do like a shit ton of damage. So like the healer is now separated from the group. We've now forced a party split. And this is where things start to get scary.
Yeah. Now, as a DM, I could have had him go for someone else, but the healer and the Void Knight had a couple words, and it made sense.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, the way the Void Knight character is he was very much like, I don't fear death, I don't care. The entire encounter, he took an opportunity attack from the Barbarian on purpose, because he was like, I just want to go do this one thing. Didn't care. The entire encounter was said that way. He went for the healer first, separated, and then one by one, he hit pretty much every turn.
Yeah.
And I think that was the overbalanced part, as he had the ability to separate the party too efficiently. If it was maybe every other turn or something had a slight couple turn cooldown for the sever ability, probably would have been more balanced. The biggest issue is I was continuously severing the party. Actually, by the time 3 people were in the other plane and had their souls severed, it wasn't that bad for those 3 people, because Rufus, our warlock, was able to take out a couple or help everyone else take out their creature.
So it turned out to be okay in the end, but that went from what could have been a medium encounter to a hard encounter very quickly. Because you remember how we talked about this action economy thing? Well, now he just took one of our actions and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So now all of a sudden we've gone from, having 4 actions per turn against a Void Knight who had, let's say, 4. It varied, but let's say 4.
He himself had roughly 4 per turn.
So it's gone from 4 on 4 to 3 on 4 to 2 on 4 to 1 on 4, right? So it slowly got harder. And on top of that, we're expending resources every turn, right? To an extent, not obviously not everybody's flinging a spell slot every turn, but in essence, if you can't
I feel like most people fling a spell slot if they had it every turn.
And also your health is a resource to an extent, right? You can take so many hits and you can and you can play more conservative. So as a resource, we were losing resources every turn while also being split more and more. So the best case scenario for us was when there were 3 of us in one spot.
Yeah.
So no matter the side, right? So when we had 3 people with the Void Knight, it was okay. And then when we had 3 people in the other spot, it was also probably okay. But once we were 2 or
2 and
1,
2, it was rough.
2 and 2,
1 and 3.
And we were also at 1.1 and 2 because one of them went down, right?
Oh yeah,
So
most people went down in that encounter. It was literally down to the wire. If you had missed with one of your spells, I'm pretty sure we would have TPK'd because the druid wouldn't have come out.
Yep.
So the way, if anyone doesn't know, the way taking a hit when you're unconscious works is it's an automatic crit, so that's 2 failed death saves. If you take just damage, it's 1 failed, and 3 failed saves is a death. So we were playing tightrope. We were walking a pretty tight line as far as people dying or not. I don't think anyone got to 2 failed saves, but there was a very high possibility of it happening a lot, or even to 3.
It was very close.
But yeah, it was overtuned because we were balanced. It was during the encounter balancing action economy a little bit too much, not way too much, but a little bit too much towards the enemy.
Yeah.
Towards the person you're trying to kill.
But the fun part about being a more experienced DM is you can kind of tune that along the way and say, okay, well, maybe he can't use his legendary action anymore because it works like spell slots. Boom. Okay, well, now I'm going to be more conservative.
I did actually do that.
Yeah, kind of crazy. He didn't even tell me that he did that, but that's just something that as you get more experience, you come up with these types of similar ideas, right?
Yeah. And he had a legendary action where he dealt more damage every turn. He could deal damage to people whose soul was severed, and it increased the amount of time that you were in
Yeah.
that realm. So on the fly, I made it maybe every other turn he can do that because it was a D8 of damage per time that he were in that realm, and that could be a
Yep.
lot of damage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I only had 27 health to begin with. Like full
Yeah,
health. Full health is 27 health on this melee warlock, right? So
yeah, yeah.
so
So that was an encounter that was very close. I would possibly prune it back by making him have a maybe every other turn or every third turn, because there are certain abilities that have 2 to 3 turn cooldowns. If you look at
oh
creatures
yeah.
in D&D,
Yep.
you can sever someone, because then you would be switching the action economy around a little bit. The one person whose soul is severed might get a little bit, screwed, but chances are they'll be okay if it's just them. Because that move that severed the soul did not do damage. It was in place of damage. So you didn't get hurt going into the
Yeah.
realm, you just got
Yeah.
sent.
And that helped a lot. So I feel like the important things that we've pulled from this is CR can be used as a guideline for relative power between units. And I think that's fair to say that the relative power between units of a CR number is relatively the same. You know, a CR 1/8 is generally the same power as the other CR 1/8 in its category.
Sure.
And if your party can kill that one thing, it can probably kill 2 or 3 others in that same category. But what it all comes down to at the end of the day is that idea of bounded accuracy and how easy is it to get hit and how many times are you going to get hit in a round is really what it comes down to. That action economy and bounded accuracy are the two things that really make an encounter run smoothly or poorly.
Right.
Because what we just explained with that Void Knight was it started off as 4
It
actions,
was
4
great.
actions, and then
And it was
3
just
actions, 4 actions, and it slowly got, better and worse throughout the course of the fight. But we noticed we never talked about CR there, right? We talked about different
right.
things that Void Knight could do and how that was comparable to the things that the party could do.
Right.
That's the key right there.
We also touched base a little bit on like action economy for one enemy versus a 4-person party, how you might add in a legendary action or two to make it so that they can actually, because one enemy versus a single party isn't going to be that fun that much unless they can do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because most DMs know you make your big bad, and then if you forget to add legendary actions, that big bad just dies in 2 turns. And you're like, well, why am I here?
Yep. They end up getting curb stomped really quickly because, again, think about it from the opposite perspective. How does that action economy work? The party gets 4 hits. Their bounded accuracy is probably +5 to hit. My AC is 15. That means they're going to hit on a 11 or higher. That's, slightly less than 50%, but that's still a lot of hits and they're going to hit hard. What's my guy hit? Okay, well, he's only got a +4. Their AC is this,
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to, is the fact that your party's hitting him with good chance of hitting 4 times to his 1. Not
There's
with
also nuances as far as AC and whatnot goes. Because,
Yeah.
if you have a very heavy melee party and you're like, I'm going to throw a 20 AC thing at them, it can be a rough encounter.
Yeah.
It can be an extra rough encounter. So, because, action economy and bounded accuracy are 2 big things, but there is also the nuances of, how much AC does this thing have? How much health does it have? You do also want to take that a little bit into account,
Yeah, and
which is where challenge rating comes in to do the whole like, okay, this is a challenge rating 5. It has normally this much AC and this much health, whatnot.
so I guess we kind of had one more thing we wanted to do. We wanted to build an encounter live on stream. Nothing's prepped for this, by the way. We're going to build an encounter. I have a couple rules I want to set, though.
Okay.
I
reject all of them.
We can only use things from the SRD or monster manual.
Okay.
And the encounter has to be based around 4 level 4 characters.
I'm okay with that. That makes sense to me.
So it's not a really, and I'm going to bring up this. We've got Cobalt Fight Club, so we can see this, and maybe I'll Google the actual monsters that we want to put in there so we can see a bit about them as we go. But the first thing I would do is I would cap my max CR at 5, because anything I add is unless I'm going to tune it, which we're pulling right from the monster manual.
Yeah.
Is already hard. So anything above 6 CR is, again, this is the relative power per unit. Chances are, if I'm not going to tune anything, is going to be too strong. Probably.
Yeah.
Because if I go find a CR6 monster here as an example, here we go. This is one we know very well, the Kazmi.
Yeah, killed a level 5 character right off the bat.
So let's take a look at this thing real quick. Does it show? Okay, this is not a good website to be using for this. D&D Wiki,
while we're
maybe?
looking at that, another thing that in like fine print in the Dungeons Master's Guide, it does say that if you use a challenge rating above your party level, it can be dead. It can one shot like there are certain creatures that can one shot. So like we had a level 5 party that there was a challenge rating 6, and it did one shot my poor Minotaur Bard, because that's just what happens sometimes.
He did roll a crit.
He rolled the crit, but like, see, that's the thing. Challenge rating 5 might not be able to fully one shot.
Yeah.
A level 5, even with a crit. A challenge rating 6 has just enough damage that with a crit, it might just kill you.
But like, look at this. It's got 84 health. So we're talking, what did we say, 4 level 4s? This thing's got 84 health. It's got almost as much health as the party combined.
Yeah.
It's got this. Its attack actually deals necrotic damage. It's got an average of 24 per hit. So that means each person that gets hit with this is probably getting hit for 24 damage.
Plus 16, because it's also piercing damage. So you're getting hit for 40. Yeah. In theory, you're getting hit for 40 damage.
Yep. And it's got a plus 5 to hit. So this is probably going to one-shot someone at some point. So that's why when you are building an encounter, if you know that, just don't look at the things that are way too powerful if you're not going to tweak them. It's kind of, don't get tempted by a big red dragon if you have no intention of tweaking it down.
Yeah, because then your party just dies. Because you can tweak things. You could be like, okay, so he only rolls 5d8 or 6d8 on the necrotic. Or you can tweak things so that it's not like, you can make it a slightly weakened Kazmi. Because you have the ability to do these things as an EM.
Can I open a Google Drive here? Is that a thing I can do? Okay, let's open up a Google Drive, and I'll open up a doc for this, and then maybe just so I can keep some notes about what we're doing. We've got this encounter, so let's think of our idea here. What is our party doing? That, because I don't know about you, but I like to kind of be a little bit thematic. Like I don't want them
Allosaurus, and I want to do a dinosaur themed encounter.
Okay, so this is another thing too. Like you got to think when you're doing this stuff. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to just come in here and be like, okay, we've got an Allosaurus that's going to be with a carrion crawler and a draft horse. Like that's just,
the draft horse, man.
That's just 3 things that I pull off this list. That doesn't make any sense, right? So you want your encounter to be coherent and make sense. So Cal's got this idea for an Allosaurus. Definitely going to work right off the bat, right? You look at the relative power levels, and you can see that's going to work. So what's something you would need to take into consideration if you were taking an Allosaurus?
Probably you're going to probably do more than one if it's a one creature encounter.
Yep.
And you're going to want to look and see what it can actually do for an attack.
Yep.
You're going to want to look at the creature and say, does it have multi-attack? Does it not have multi-attack? How much damage would it do on average?
Yep. Also,
specifically the multi-attack thing.
Also, take a look at the size here.
It's large.
It's large.
So if you have things that grapple, there are various things that large creatures can do. If you're making a map, it's actually really important to look at the size of a creature, because like in Foundry, the large creature does take up the 10 by 10 tile. So you need to make sure you're not in a small room or the creature just takes up the entire thing.
And the other thing to think about is what goes with an Allosaurus. Well, an Ankylosaurus could go with that, right? That's huge. So keeping these things in mind, I might not use an Ankylosaurus to begin with, but if they one-shot the Allosaurus, maybe the Ankylosaurus will be something I, throw in right away. So I want to make an environment that's going to be accommodating to the other types of monsters that could potentially show up here. So we've got an Allosaurus here. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so it's got 51 hit points. That's not too bad. 3 turns to kill if everybody hits. It's only got 13 AC, which means the party's probably going to hit on a 11 at worst. Pounce. Okay, so that's just prone. That's I say just prone, but if it does that, it can get a bite.
Do it, yeah, it can get an extra bite.
So it's got +6 to hit, which means it's probably going to hit on an 8 or higher with level 4 characters. I'm just averaging stuff. It's not all the time. So it's probably going to hit low, and it's going to do 15 damage per hit with a bite, or 8.
That's a lot of damage.
Or 8 with a claw. So where this comes in though is that he can only melee, and he has a low AC as well. And everybody on the team's probably going to be able to hit him. So in one round of combat, he's going to get at most 2 hits.
Probably not. Maybe the first round too if he does knock prone.
Yeah, and if he does knock prone, he's only going to be able to do 1 attack in the creature's prone if it didn't do the saving throw. So either way, he's only going to get like 1 damaging attack per turn to the 4. And if everybody hits, like the average person's probably going to hit them for at least 8. Probably. So, that's 32 damage per turn if everybody hits with about 8. So
2 turns. And it's down.
So 2 turns and it's down, and it's only going to get to hit twice during that time. So that seems okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep him here. The Allosaurus seems like a pretty good candidate. So we're going dinosaurs.
We're going dinosaurs. Jurassic Park.
So if I'm thinking of this,
let's go.
And this is kind of where the idea of crafting this comes into play. If I was doing this, I would put this out in kind of like a rocky, kind of mountainy, cavernous place. You know what I mean? Like almost like a canyon type area with a lot of difficult terrain on the flanks.
I would do it in an amusement park. Because Jurassic Park.
And that could work too. But what I would be looking...
We can do the Rocky thing makes more sense. We're going to go with the Rocky Balboa.
So as I'm crafting this encounter, I'm thinking of, okay, if I'm going to go the Allosaurus route, how can I give the Allosaurus an advantage that's not too crazy? Well, difficult terrain around the flanks makes that difficult for the party to move, but this Allosaurus has 60 feet of movement. So it's not really going to be an issue for him.
It's going to just reach the party. Like, it can just get to the party is the thing. You have to make it a pretty large swath around it. Because the party's going to have to, like, start the combat in difficult terrain. Because the Allosaurus, which, on its first turn, is going to charge the party, probably.
Yeah, I'm more thinking about, like, for them trying to fan out and get around it, that would be the hard part. If they want to run straight forwards or straight backwards, they're probably okay. But trying to go out and around would be probably difficult for them in this instance. That would be that's how I would design something like this.
Now, I do want to point out that in the 5e book, it is up to the DM whether they want to use flanking or not, which gives you advantage. I believe that's the variant rule.
It is. And I just mean flank, like just in terms of like tactically trying to run around him so that they're not all grouped together. Even if we ignore the flanking rule of just, going along the flanks of the dinosaur, it would be difficult.
True.
But it would also disincentivize doing something like flanking because now you're at half movement.
Right. You have to actually move around this large creature.
Okay, so what does this encounter look like? Are we going to add more dinosaurs?
I would think about maybe adding 1 or 2 more.
So our options are Allosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Plesiosaurus, and Pteranodon, and Triceratops is just out. We've already got an Allosaurus
by itself, maybe at the very ending. Like if it was a full dungeon, it would be like Triceratops is the big thing with maybe a Petrodon if you don't want to add legendary actions.
Yeah. So let's take a look at a different. Let's look at this guy, the Plesiosaurus.
I
I
think
don't.
Plesiosaurus water dinosaurs.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know.
Yeah. So that would actually make literally no sense because Plesiosaurus are water. They're giant water dinosaurs.
Okay, so we are not going to use that. I've never actually used that one. So let's go to the Pteranodon. Because it kind of makes sense that maybe the Allosaurus is kind of the leader of this pack,
Sure.
right? So this
That
guy,
does make
okay,
sense.
yeah, he's got fly, which could make him kind of annoying to hit. He's got 13 hit points, 13 AC. He's going down in 2 hits, really, not even 2 turns. He's flying. He doesn't provoke opportunity, which makes him a really good candidate for this kind of, difficult terrain with the
Right.
Pteranodon kind of swooping at you all the time. And he doesn't do a lot of damage.
So you could do like an Allosaur and then have like 3 Pteranodons
And that's what I was thinking.
or something like that. Because your action economy is fine. You're looking at 1 per Pteranodon, and then you're looking at maybe 2 for an Ankylosaur.
So if we look at this is saying it's a medium encounter. I don't think I believe that per se.
Might be.
I would say this is on the easier end of medium.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's any danger of anybody going down. Remember, in a medium encounter, 1 person can go unconscious.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any fear of that here. But I would like to show you guys how this works over here. So this is the combat thing I was using yesterday. So we've now got a barbarian, a paladin, a monk, and a wizard. We've got an Allosaurus. And we've got a Pteranodon. How many do we say? 3 of those?
Yeah.
We're only going to do 25 fights because you actually have to wait for them all to go. So it's doing it now. It's done 13 fights already. So the party won 100% of those. So if we can actually,
that's an actual meet. Like that's an easy. So that's on the easy level of encounters.
So we can actually look at this and see what happened. I think if we jump to the very end, it'll give us a better summary here. So the paladin took some damage, but everybody else was at full health. Like I said, there was this was not a medium encounter.
No.
The barbarian. So this is kind of what happened here. The wizard did 40 damage. The paladin did 25 damage. The monk did 22. The barbarian did 31. Average monster damage was 18 per fight, and the average party damage was 90. So the Allosaurus only did 18 damage compared to the party's 90. Or not the Allosaurus, sorry, the whole monster's side. That means the Pteranodons didn't even get to attack.
Right. And that can happen. And this is where, let's say theoretically you ready to do this encounter as a DM and your party steamrolled it. This is where you would possibly adjust on the fly. Maybe you add in another couple Allosauruses. Maybe you do a flock of those things.
So here we go.
Pterodactyls.
Let's see how far we can push this. So we've got I just put in wave 2. So let's say after they did that, as the final Pteranodon goes down, it lets out a squeal. And then now all of a sudden there's, 6 Pteranodon that come in. This is now going to make it a bit harder. So if we run these 25 fights, there's a good chance the party wins 25%, but if we should see some fluctuation here because now we've created an imbalance.
I think 6 Pteranodons might not be an imbalance.
We should see some damage though. We should
party though. Paladin, barbarian. Yep.
So yeah, if you look at this now, the wizard still took no damage, but now the paladin, monk, and barbarian all took damage. This was more what I would consider a medium encounter. Because now you've got multiple people who've taken damage. They're not going to go down, but under the right circumstances, under the right circumstances, that barbarian took quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
The monsters ended up doing, an average of 144 damage. So like that,
Yeah.
this would be something I would consider to be a medium encounter.
Yeah, 6 pterodons or pterodons could be. Yeah, I agree with that.
And apparently, according to this, one person died 12% of the time. So there were fights. This is just one fight here, but there were fights where people, I'm assuming, went unconscious, because you can't say
Imagine
you can't just say they died.
Yeah. And the wizard always died.
Yeah. So like, again, this is the definition of a medium encounter. There was some stuff expended. Maybe one person goes down. It's a low percentage, but maybe one person goes down. This is kind of the textbook definition of a medium encounter. But if we go back and throw this into Kobold Fight Club and we add 6 more of these, this is deadly. They shouldn't even do this. This is just completely deadly.
Yeah. So you're adding them afterwards, though. So you're not actually fighting. In your simulator, you're fighting 4 things followed by 6 things, which is different than 1 thing, different than 10 things all at once.
That's true. I'll give you that. So that would be 13. So yeah, according to this, so like that was 1300, and then 600, so 1900.
The 6 would be pretty easy by themselves, which is weird because it's saying it's an easy encounter, right? And that was the encounter where people went down.
Well, it ran them both back to back.
Oh, back to back. Okay.
So it runs 4, and then when
by an easy, I feel like if a medium followed by an easy, you'd think, oh well, that's no one should be going down at all. But
the thing is that there's no rest in between, right? So
right.
Whoever got hit in the first one, it's like the one where somebody went down. The wizard probably got targeted in round 1 and in round 2. And he didn't get maybe his spell slots are all gone. Like a level 4 wizard doesn't have a crap ton of spell slots. Like, what turn did this go to?
That's the question.
This went to
average number was that?
Round 3.
Round 3?
Yeah. Or wait, round 1.
It's
six rounds total. 3 rounds for wave 1, 3 rounds for wave 2.
So let's say everything goes for the wizard. Chances are the wizard's going to go down.
Yeah. But again, the players won 100% of the time. And just because this says the wizard died, well, it's just guessing saving throws, right? There's just as equally of a chance it wins. What matters is that it went down, not necessarily that it died, because someone can walk over and stabilize him. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen between him going down and him dying. But the fact that he goes down.
Favor and look up gibbering mouthers.
Oh no.
So another D&D thing that happened is I just put, was it 2?
Yeah.
2 challenge rating 2 things for a party of level 4 level 4s.
That's supposed to be medium.
Yeah, but like the damage pull up the gibbering mouther like sheet.
Okay.
This is where I feel like it's actually different than this is actually I feel like a poorly challenge rated thing. The creature itself is it should be a 3.
Yeah, here we go. It's got multi-attack right off the gate. It's got 67.
67 health for a challenge rating 2.
But it's got a based on bounded
low armor class.
If you look at bounded accuracy, it should be okay.
But it does 5d6 damage.
It does 5d6 damage, but it's only a +2 to hit with a low armor class and medium hit. Like theoretically.
Okay, sure. In theory, it's fine, but run an encounter. Someone just do that. Run an encounter with a gibbering mouther. Also, the fact that you can also incapacitate. It actually can remove actions from the party every turn due to its gibbering.
So 2 gibbering mouthers.
2 gibbering mouthers against 4 4s.
4 4s. We'll run this one 100 times, and we'll talk about it while it's going. So let's go back to the gibbering mouther page here. It's got multi-attack right off the gate. It's got the
blind,
the difficult terrain. It's got the blind. It's got what's the
Essentially, it's gibbering makes it so that if you
Yeah.
roll a certain amount, the person either does nothing, can't do certain things, and or attacks a random creature
Yeah.
next to it.
Let's go back to here. The party wins 100% of the time, but how many people went down?
Probably like no one. I'm just gonna say you guys are
One
bad, but
person
quite a
die.
tough beat.
One person dies 2% of the time.
Wow. Okay. This was
Um,
also the second encounter. So this was the second encounter in that cave.
this is true.
But
What was the first encounter? Because that makes a big difference.
two, no, three undead ogres or two undead ogres. I can't remember.
Ogre zombies.
Ogre zombie. Sorry,
I think it was 3.
was it three? Might have been three.
Let's say 2, just for fun.
We'll say two. I think it was two.
2, and then
I'm gonna go
2,
with two.
and then 2 gibbering mouthers in the next wave. Let's run that same fight again. It's going to change dramatically because you've now the amount of things that are going to be expended are quite different.
It's true.
So we're doing 100 fights here. We've got 40 of them done right now. You're going to go look up what you actually did now, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I can just open up Foundry and see because I think I still have the map. Oh, no, but I deleted the creatures. I wouldn't be able to tell.
Quick, go watch the VOD.
No, that would take way too much time.
So
we
got 90 fights done.
Gonna walk you through the thought process as a DM. I actually did the thing that we were talking about not doing, which was just looking at challenge rating. I didn't really look at the creature too much. I was like, okay, so I want something that seems kind of challenging. 2 challenge rating, 2 creatures, not gonna be that bad. So we'll add that as a second fight. First fight, I think also ogres are challenge rating 2. I filled it with challenge rating 2 creatures mostly.
So the
3 ogres, gonna push it a little bit.
The party only wins 92% of the time. So there's an 8% chance that the party loses. So 3% of the time, 1% of the time, 3 people die. 6% of the time, 2 people die. And 21% of the time, 1 person dies. The average amount of health left is 15 for the wizard, 19 for the paladin, 12 for the rogue, 10 for the monk. And then on the ones where there's something alive, it's a gibbering mouther with 2 health left.
Oh, it's gibbering mouthers, man.
So like,
ogre zombies also have a ton of health. I noticed that when I put them there, but then I really noticed that when you guys took a very long time to kill one, and I was like, oh, yeah, nice. They don't do a ton of damage.
Like little simulators like this can be pretty good because like the fact that this isn't 100% win, so players win means there's 1 person alive at the end. Yeah. That means 8 of the fights that happened in that 100 fight simulation, nobody lived.
Fact.
So if this is not like the last like your last combat in these string of encounters and there's an 8% chance everyone dies,
it wasn't.
You got to think about that, right? If you're like, that's where I like these simulations because I look at this now and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what happened to us. I'd say there was an 8% chance, probably closer to 10, that we could have died there.
And there was an encounter with 6 orcs after that, but there was a lot of choke points.
Yeah.
So that was actually using the map to make a high action economy for the enemy team go down.
I feel like we got a short rest between those two, didn't we?
Yeah, you had a short rest between all fights, actually. You had a short rest before the gibbering mouther, I think. Or maybe you didn't, because you had side and had to. The one before the orcs was a short rest, so you guys were at full.
And how many orcs was it?
It was 6.
6 orcs.
But I was able to use terrain to make it feel more like 4 or maybe 3 at max.
Yeah. Okay, so short rest on here. They're all
short rest. 4/4.
2 ogre
and then
zombies.
There was a potential for you to fight an ogre zombie, a gibbering mouther, and an orc if you had failed the puzzle.
Oh boy.
That would have been fun. There was also another encounter in that cave that I took out because DMing sometimes on the fly. I like to add more encounters that we end up than we ever need to use,
Yeah.
just so that I can take an encounter away very easily. Actually, adding in creatures can be a bit of a pain in the butt on the fly.
I don't like adding creatures to an encounter because it almost feels like a gotcha. You know what I
Well,
mean?
right,
Like,
but I'm
ha,
just talking
you're
about
not.
actually having I'm just talking about having more encounters than I want to, like a side room that
Yeah.
you might go into and there's nothing in there because I decided to remove the encounter because it was
Yes.
gonna get a bit crazy.
I like doing that, but what I don't like doing is you beat all the goblins, but you're not low enough health. So now there's 10 more goblins that are coming in. Like, it's cool if you
Yeah.
plan that ahead of time and it just happens, but I personally, I would rather have you enter a different room with something else going, like what you're talking about, like having more
Yeah.
combats available than just reinforcements show up. Now, sometimes that's a really cool mechanic and it makes sense. Sometimes it's not. Like, you kind of got to know, again, you got to know a bit about your world and your encounter and exactly what you're building.
So technically, you also there were 2 owl bears in that cave as well. They were also that you
True.
guys evaded. That was a pretty easy one to dodge, though. So I threw that in there as a if you guys roll really low, it happens. But there's also some other things.
So the way I set this up, you can't see the short rest, but 2 ogre zombies, 2 gibbering mouthers, short rest, 6 orcs is a 59% win for the party.
If you ran that on completely flat terrain and
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. If everyone could like surround you and stuff, and
Correct. The orcs could not get more than 2 people on one of the barbarian. Like the barbarian, I think was the only one that took any damage in that orc fight.
but I mean, even when this is considered a balanced fight because we still have the edge by about 10%,
Correct.
and it's usually only one person that dies.
Very
So
true.
this is still considered a balanced fight even without the terrain restrictions. But it just comes back to like if we plug that into CR, like none of those are encounters themselves. Like the gibbering mouthers, they're just a 2. Or sorry, a medium. The ogre zombies are just a medium encounter.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be the same.
And then the orcs.
So it's just 2. Yeah.
The orcs, that's a medium encounter. Like these 3 medium encounters stacked up like that become, harder. And we're still nowhere near the XP total for the day.
It's
So
true.
like, and I think like a good thing to touch on too is that like not all encounters are combat based. So like while you should get 6,800 experience points, some of that could be sneaking past something or picking a lock or solving a puzzle.
It's true.
You don't need 6,800 combat experience points per day.
Everything needs to be combat. Let's go.
But let's see, was there anything else we wanted to talk about today? That's kind of, we built a quick encounter for them. We talked about action economy and bounded accuracy and why or why not use CR. We went over
why using CR by itself is a bad idea. Let's end off with I'm gonna have my last stance be CR is bad because we try and use it by itself. It's a bad idea. It's an okay guide. Just don't say this CR. This has this CR. It's going to be this encounter and make whatever based surely on CR challenge rating.
Yeah, and something I saw in a Matt Koval video once is that there was at one point he asked his players if they wanted to fight one big bad monster or several small ones. He asked them out front, what do you want the final finale to this dungeon to be? Do you want to fight one big guy or do you want to fight many little guys? Yeah. I think he said he did something like 15 waves of 6 kobolds or something like that. And they were like relatively high level, but they still almost died. And they were like, what the hell? Like we almost got vanquished by kobolds? Like what's going on here? Like
it can happen.
But the thing was this was like the final boss to a dungeon, right? So like,
right.
15 waves of 6 kobolds going into like level 5s isn't really that bad. But it is. especially because kobolds are cunning and they're probably also going to lure you into like traps and stuff. And
Well, of course.
there's actually a whole one-shot campaign about that. What's it called?
Yeah.
I think it's called the Low Crater or something like that. And literally in the description, it just basically says CR doesn't matter. And
Nice.
the only enemies in that dungeon are kobolds, but they've got a shit ton of Home Alone traps that they have all set up for you. So like you just take damage from these traps and then you end up in kobold encounters and almost die.
And you're just dead.
It's a really cool encounter by Winghorn Press. I think it's free or $1 or something like that. It's definitely worth running to people who think that you can't have fun with low CR creatures.
Oh, you can. Oh, you can.
So I guess just before we end off, just a couple of short announcements. Like Cal said, this Sunday coming up, we're doing his D&D campaign, then we're taking a break.
People are doing things. So we're taking like a month and a half break after this Sunday.
And then my campaign, one of the players had a baby yesterday/today. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a break. I'm just going to kind of talk to him and see when he's ready to play on Sundays again. So there'll be a little bit of a lull in D&D content, but hey, maybe me and Cal will start doing maybe we'll revamp something and talk about creating D&D stuff on Sundays or something, just so we don't go crazy.
Good.
Who knows? I'm just bringing it up to him now and putting him on the spot.
We're never doing it. Shooting it down.
It's going to turn out like when I was like,
everybody.
Hey, maybe we should speed run Minecraft Dungeons. Maybe not.
See, that's when I just leave. I just like no more. That suggestion hits the table and I'm just gone. I know that it's the end.
So I don't think I have anything else.
No, I think we're good. I mean, we have our announcements. We'll be back Monday. We haven't planned what the next one's going to be. If you have any suggestions for our next podcast, feel free to leave them in the YouTube comments. Don't actually open up the Word doc and write them in there because we won't be able to see them. Believe it or not, we cannot see your computers.
You can also send them to us on Twitter
works too.
It's at Dungeon Download because Dungeons and Downloads is too many characters for a Twitter handle. But at Dungeon Download, you can send them to us at Twitter, Facebook, comment. Just let us know if there's something you guys want to see, and we'll see how we can best set that up.
Yeah. Try our best, which might not always be the best, but we will try our best.
Well, thanks everybody for coming out, and we will see you next Monday.
See you next Monday.